And today we're reacting to the problem with the Steam machine. Something is very wrong with the Steam machine right now. If you've been looking into building a PC or buying a new console, you're probably noticing that the prices are starting to creep up again. Austin says we're staring down the barrel of a massive crisis fueled by AI. And to be honest, that could last a couple of years or so, or possibly a decade. So let's jump into this and see how bad this really is.
Something is very wrong in the tech industry right now, and I think Valve's new Steam machine is the perfect example. This should be an incredible competitor to consoles, but there's a very good reason why Valve won't tell you how much it costs.
Right.
At least not yet. After the solid success of the Steam Deck, it absolutely makes sense for Valve to bring SteamOS to the living room. The new Steam machine is a tiny little PC box with specs that, at least on paper, are pretty solid. Yeah, sure, it's nothing earth-shattering, but it's roughly in the performance ballpark of the PS5, maybe just a little bit behind. This is set to launch in 2026, and I gotta say, I think Valve have made some really smart decisions here. But there is one massive question: price. Type Steam machine into YouTube search, and one of the first autocompletes is Steam machine price. As of recording this video, all Valve have said is stuff like, it's comparable to a small form factor PC with similar specs, and it's entry-level PC gaming. Like, that's vague. Really.
You know what entry-level PC gaming is to me? $3,000. I spent $3,000 on the Aurora R15 Alienware. That's my first gaming PC. I balled out, bro. I balled out. But they say entry levels. Entry level to me is thousands. I don't care what you think.
Really vague. But here's what I think is actually happening. Valve can't tell you the price yet because they legitimately don't know what it's going to cost to build this thing. Now that sounds crazy for a product that's what, 6 months away? But we're not talking about a product that's going to be on sale in 6 months. It's a product that's going to be on sale for years. And these are absolutely not normal times. There is a massive crisis that's about to hit the entire tech industry. I don't think most people understand just how much it's going to cause complete and utter chaos.
Yeah.
My friends, if you need proof that we're in the rain before the hurricane, I come with receipts. So I just built this PC at Micro Center just a few weeks ago.
It's going to look
and
beautiful.
This, while it was a very lovely build, was
God.
incredible.
Boy, that PC looks sexy. Oh my God, I need that.
Difficult to get the price to performance right on. So the 32 gigabyte kit of RAM that I put in this system, if I would have bought it back in September, it would have cost $90.
True.
This exact same kit today here in December, $250.
God. Oh my God, bro.
It's not a typo.
Oh my
Kits and
God.
capacity, it way more than doubled in price in just 3 months. And I'm not just cherry picking data here. This is happening across the board. This chart from PC Part Picker shows average prices of DDR5 memory through 2024 and into late 2025. Most of the year, prices were stable, even actually dropping slightly. And then starting in the fall, they absolutely exploded. Now this is not just an isolated incident. So CyberPower PC, one of the biggest pre-built PC companies in the US, are officially raising their prices based on RAM hikes. They cited, and I quote, 500% increases in memory costs. Now I think that's a little bit over the top, but this isn't an issue that's coming. It is here, right now, and it is about to get way worse. So what happened? I mean, how do we go from dirt cheap memory to this in just a few months?
Yeah, I really want to know what happened.
Now, it really does come down to AI. And before you roll your eyes, I'm not talking about whether ChatGPT will become an AGI machine god anytime soon. I'm talking about something a little bit more grounded in reality. Basically, every single major tech company is building absolutely massive AI data centers right now. I think it's truly difficult to wrap your head around the scale of these things. I know when I was working on this video, doing the research, like, the numbers aren't real numbers. Like, $20 billion is like pocket change for this data center that was being built yesterday, but there's a $50 billion tomorrow, and how about $500 billion? How about more money that exists in the world?
Oh, I gotta pause right there. I pause because the chart that he just showed showing the RAM It's actually terrifying. Do y'all remember the GPU shortage where you couldn't get graphics cards for under $1,000? So now I see we really took cheap RAM and SSD cards for granted. Austin is really making a wonderful distinction here. This isn't just inflation. This is really supply shock. If memory prices effectively rises in 90 days, that kills the budget for bills. A $90 kit becoming $250? Man, oh my God, bro. That's terrifying. That destroys a price to performance ratio of building your PC. And that's really scary to think that even when you can afford a GPU, the rest of the parts just might bankrupt you.
Sure, we'll build it. Like, what? I just want to build my PC, man. There's a lot that goes into a modern AI server because it doesn't just need a lot of RAM. It needs very specialized, expensive stuff called high bandwidth memory or HBM. Yeah. You can think about HBM as traditional RAM that you would use in your computer or laptop or something, but it's stacked vertically to increase not only the density, but also the speed. It's more complex to manufacture, and as you probably could have guessed, way, way more profitable. To put things in perspective.
For all you PC fanatics, you know what you're talking about. Not me. I am a fucking dummy when it comes down to this shit. I just threw my money at the shit and said, build this shit for me. Cause I don't know that stuff. Y'all can handle that. Y'all can explain all that in the comments for me.
OpenAI alone has reportedly contracted 900,000 DRAM wafers per month. That is 40% of global RAM output going to a single company. Now, I would take that number with a slight grain of salt as it's more of a target, but if you view things through this lens, I think you might start to see where I'm going with this. Here's the thing. These companies do not care what it costs. When you're XAI or Microsoft or Google or Anthropic or Meta and you're in an AI arms race, you pay whatever it takes because falling behind means you lose. They're not price sensitive. These companies are throwing quite literally more money at the problem than almost any endeavor humanity has ever attempted. We're talking trillions of dollars here. Like, it's at the point where it is so hard to wrap your head around the numbers. I can't even give you a good alternative like, oh, it's only like, 400 Bed Bath & Beyonds.
Yeah.
400 Bed Bath & Beyonds. So what does all this have to do with your gaming PC or next laptop or console? Well, there are really only 3 companies that make the vast majority of the world's memory: Samsung, SK Hynix, and Micron. And they've looked at the situation and made an admittedly very rational business decision to throttle back making cheap consumer memory and pivot their production lines to high-margin AI memory. So SK Hynix, for example, has reportedly booked their entire memory capacity through the end of 2026. Like, you can't just call them up and say, hey, can I get some more RAMs? Like, either you're already in line or too bad, we'll see you in 2027, suckers.
Yeah.
Right, direct quote from their sales team, because they're rich. The production lines that used to churn out DDR4 and DDR5 for your PC are now being pivoted to making HBM for AI servers. And just as we're putting the finishing touches on this video, Micron, the brand behind Crucial, just announced today they are exiting the consumer RAM business. So Crucial has been one of the biggest RAM players for quite a while. I built tons of PCs with Crucial RAM, and they've decided that they're gonna quit making consumer memory to focus on high margin AI memory.
Oh my God, man, think about the customers. We wanna build our PCs, bro. I just bought me a Vengeance RAM too. Like, I got, 16 gigs of both. Man, I only had one in this Alienware, but I fixed that. My PC was glitching, stuttering, a whole bunch of mess. But once I put that extra 16 gigs of RAM in there, start running very smoothly.
You know all the stuff I'm saying in this video about how bad it is that there's only 3 companies and that there's not enough supply to go around, they're all sold out. Well, hey, guess what? Now there's 2 companies and now there's even less hope. Okay, let's take a breath here, right? This is bad. But it's not just a couple of PC components or seeing like a weird price spike for a minute, and essentially no time. Memory that goes into everything from a gaming PC to a laptop, console, phone, you name it. It has skyrocketed at a nearly unprecedented rate. And it's happening, at least to some degree, across the board right now. RAM, NAND flash for SSDs, GDDR memory for graphics cards, all of it is starting to feel the squeeze from the gravitational pull of AI. Now, this is the first time in 30 years or more that all major memory and storage categories are starting to see a shortage at the same time. You can't just avoid the pain by switching to a different kind of storage or memory.
Can't.
Everything is getting more expensive all at once.
It really put things into perspective when he mentions that consumer PCs is basically just leftovers. The stat about OpenAI taking at least 40% of the global supply is really mind-blowing, to be honest. And I'm not gonna lie, OpenAI, it sucks now. I don't use Sora 2 and I don't use OpenAI no longer. Ever since the little hats bought it, I just let my OpenAI subscription cancel. As a gamer, this really feels unfair. We are essentially priced out of our own hobby, and now playing games becomes much harder. All because of these pathetic tech giants is in a race for AI. And I wish the corporations understand that a lot of people don't even like AI anymore. They call it AI slop. To me personally, it's only useful for video editing. So the consumers is now competing with major companies for silicon computers. At no point at any reason we should be competing with Microsoft.
We're seeing the ripple effects spread across the industry. For me, I'm probably not doing any budget PC builds for the foreseeable future. When RAM alone can cost more than some entire systems used to, the math just doesn't make sense. Some retailers in Japan have started rationing memory, literally limiting how many sticks you can buy. Micro Center here in the US is updating RAM prices in real time instead of using shelf labels because the prices are changing that fast. But here's what's important to understand. The DIY PC market, it's just the canary in the coal mine. We're seeing the price shocks first because the supply chain moves quick, and obviously you can see the price of individual components, but consoles are already feeling it. So I'm hearing rumors that Microsoft might be running into supply issues due to memory availability, and this is after they've already raised Xbox prices twice in the last year. The Xbox Series X went from $499.
I'm convinced Microsoft is trying to destroy the gaming community. That's just it.
$99 to $649. Sony, on the other hand, apparently saw this coming and stockpiled GDDR6 memory before prices went crazy. Smart move, but that stockpile won't last forever. And once it runs out, PlayStation is going to face the same reality. The traditional PC and laptop space isn't immune either. Supposedly, Lenovo bought enough memory to stockpile through the end of 2026. Now, it makes sense, they're one of the biggest PC makers in the world, and if they were scared enough to tie up that much cash in inventory, what does that tell you?
Certainly for the remaining of our fiscal year, which is another 6 months away. Plus, we've got longer term contracts also in place. So I think from that perspective, we feel quite comfortable.
Now, I can really go on and on. I mean, graphics cards have finally stabilized in the last year or so, but ASUS have already warned that they may have to start raising GPU prices because of this. I've also heard that NVIDIA will push back their big launches until deeper into 2026 for similar reasons. Well, that and the fact that they're too busy raking in nearly $300 million of profit, largely from AI.
Bro, I still got an RTX 380 Ti, bro. I have not evolved. I have not progressed. And now you're about to increase the prices on GPU, man? Oh my God, bro.
Chips every day. So, let's talk about why Valve can't give you a price yet. Linus recently did a great video building an equivalent system to the Steam Machine, and he predicted the price would be around $699, which I think is a very reasonable guess. So I'm going to take a stab at guessing what the Steam Machine would have cost under normal circumstances, because I think that Valve built this to a pretty low price, or at least originally a pretty low price. So if you look at stuff like the CPU, so it's a slightly older 6-core CPU they're using, it's a mobile Zen 4 based part. I bet that this probably costs like $60 or less from AMD in the kind of giant quantities that Valve are building the Steam Machine with. The GPU is a cut down RX 7600 with only 8 gigs of GDDR6. In a normal market, that's probably like $120 to maybe $150. Go through the other stuff like the 16 gigs of DDR5, probably like $50 or $60. The 512 gig NVMe SSD, maybe $40. Even when you add in the custom motherboard, power supply, the cooling, the case, and the controller, and the assembly costs. I mean, I personally think that Valve were probably targeting $499 for the base model.
I doubt it. I think the base model is probably going to be at least $599, just $100 more. But Austin could be right. But the magic of the Steam Deck had that aggressive price model, bro. If the Steam Deck lands at least $699 or $749, that would be a weird no man's land. At that price, we're competing with high-end parts or simply just upgrading a existing PC. But Valve is a huge software. But like Austin said, it is tiny compared to Samsung and Apple. They can't eat losses forever. If a console PC end up costing significantly more than the PlayStation Pro, the average consumer is just going to stick to the PlayStation 5 or hell, even still the PlayStation 4. I really hope Austin is wrong because the math ain't mathing. It really isn't looking good for a budget Steam box, bro.
$99 for the base model, maybe $549 to give them some margin. But I mean, let's not forget that the Steam Machine is probably a little bit less powerful than the base PS5, a console that came out in 2020 for $499. Like, I think Valve are being very particular on the affordability, at least the planned affordability of the Steam Machine. But that was before RAM doubled in price, before VRAM got tight, before SSDs started climbing. And here's where being a smaller player really hurts Valve. Big companies like Lenovo and Dell can negotiate massive contracts and stockpile components. They can absorb some of the price shocks or lock in favorable rates months or years in advance. A smaller player, Framework, had to stop selling standalone RAM modules because they just couldn't source enough supply. Now don't get me wrong, Valve is huge in software. When it comes to hardware manufacturing, they're tiny. They just don't have the leverage to stockpile and negotiate the way that someone like Sony can. So now I think about the math and how I think it really has completely changed, because that supposed $499 target, which of course I am just estimating, could have been more, could have been less. I think that is completely dead. I would love to see the Steam Machine at maybe $599. I think if Valve are aggressive, they could go for that. But I also think that $699 is probably more realistic, especially given where memory prices are headed through the first half of 2026. And you know what? At $699, it might still be a solid deal compared to building a small form factor PC yourself right now. But let's not forget, Valve are going to be selling the Steam Machine for years. The price they set today is the price that we're likely going to be paying in 2027 and 2028, when people are still buying Steam Machines. But there's another factor that I actually think is a pretty smart move on Valve's part, that 8 gigs of VRAM. Now, when they first announced this, a lot of people pretty fairly jumped on that was a pretty major flaw. I mean, yeah, 8 gigs is fine, but it's starting to get tight for modern games, especially if you're trying to push higher resolution.
But let's be real. Bro, a lot of us play Steam for those indie games, bro. And those indie games really isn't that powerful. Just saying.
But here's the thing. Knowing what we know now about the memory market, I think it was actually a pretty deliberate choice. A cut down 8 gig RX 7600 was probably the only way to hit anything resembling a reasonable price point. If they had gone up to 12 or 16 gigs of VRAM, especially in the current environment, they probably would have pushed this well into the realm of full-on gaming PC pricing. Is it ideal? No. But I get it. It explains why they're being so vague about pricing right now. They do not want to announce, say, a $599 price point, only just to have to raise it to $699 a few months later. The market can, and probably will, shift dramatically between now and launch or now and the end of next year. Valve are really buying themselves time to see how bad this really gets.
Yeah.
So, what do you actually do with this information? Well, if you're planning a PC build, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It is already way more expensive than it was just a couple of months ago. That ship has sailed.
What if that was an agenda? Like, what if that was their plan all along to make, building consoles, building PCs. It was their plan alone to make this shit real hard for us. And we have no choice but to buy their version. It could have been a plan the whole entire time. Let me know what you think.
But here's the thing. It's probably going to get worse before it gets better. Most analysts agree that prices will continue rising through at least the first half of 2026, with some expecting they could last even into 2027. But honestly, the bigger opportunity right now is in finished products. Think laptops, consoles, pre-builts. These haven't fully absorbed the price shocks yet.
Yeah.
I really think that right now, there's a window of opportunity, especially for products that are still at MSRP or even on sale for the holidays. I think that window, though, is going to close fast. If you're thinking about buying a PS5, a Switch 2, a gaming laptop, now is almost certainly the time. Not next summer, not next fall, right now.
Yep.
Okay, so I will freely admit that this is a little bit of a doomer take, because I, of course, could be totally wrong about how this plays out. Supply chains are incredibly complicated, and like we saw in the pandemic, they break in unexpected ways. This AI bubble could pop if companies suddenly realize that they've overbuilt data centers and memory manufacturers start pivoting back to consumer products instead of making the super juicy sort of stuff that lives in servers. Like, it could come back faster, right? Like, new fabs can come up. Like, it is hard to predict the future, but it does feel like a lot of what's happening right now is already baked in for 2026. And the flip side is maybe this lasts longer than most people think. Maybe we're not in for a year of prices being high, but 2, 3, 4 years of elevated prices. Because this AI boom has fundamentally changed how manufacturers prioritize production. And I'll tell you, data centers are not going to slow down anytime soon as far as I'm concerned. As for the Steam Machine, I still think it's going to be a cool device. I mean, Valve know how to make great hardware. The Steam Deck is legitimately one of the greatest things I think they've ever shipped. But I also think that the price tag is going to say a lot about how aggressive and how much pain that Valve are willing to sort of swallow to actually sell you a shiny new Steam Machine.
Now, this creates a lot of FOMO, fear of missing out. I do think there is logic here to hold up. Usually in tech, the advice is to wait at least 6 months for the tech to be cheaper. And Austin is arguing the opposite. Buy now because it's about to get worse. If you're getting an old laptop or an old CPU, it might be generally safer to upgrade during the holiday than to roll your dice in 2026. The supply chains does move slowly, and if manufacturers is already pivoting to AI today, those shortages are guaranteed for next year. We might as well pack it up because I guess the era of dirt cheap PC is finally over. It's the corporations versus the consumers. I'll see you in the next video.